My name is Margaret. I am 72 years old, and if there is one thing I have learned in my lifetime, it is this. Sometimes the scariest prisons don't have bars. They have familiar faces. I never thought I would say those words about my own family. After my husband passed away, I stayed in the home we built together. It wasn't big, but it was full of memories, laughter in the kitchen, quiet Sunday mornings, the smell of fresh bread, the way the light came through the curtains in the evening. As I grew older, my son Daniel and his wife Emma began visiting more often. They brought groceries sometimes. They fixed the back step. They helped with little things. At least, that's how it began. "Mom, you shouldn't be doing heavy work," Emma would say. "Mom, it's safer if we handle things." I thought it was kindness. I thought it was love. Eventually, they suggested moving in, just to help out. I agreed. I trusted them. I was grateful. But slowly, the air in my own house began to change. Doors that used to stay open were quietly closed. Keys were quietly moved. Conversations stopped when I entered the room. Whispers filled spaces where laughter used to live. And then rules appeared. Rules that I had never agreed to. "Mom, don't go outside alone. Mom, we'll handle the bills. Mom, you don't need to worry about your bank anymore. We'll manage it." Little by little, my life became smaller. I told myself it was normal, that getting older meant giving control away, that they meant well. But one day, everything changed. It was a quiet afternoon. I went outside to look for a small gardening tool in the shed. I still liked tending to my flowers. They were one of the few things that still listened when I spoke. I stepped inside the shed, and the door closed behind me. I thought it was just the wind, until I heard the click, the lock, from the outside. At first, I laughed softly. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they didn't realize I was inside. I called out. No answer. Minutes passed, then an hour, then another. The shed was small and dark. Dust floated through the air like tiny ghosts. My heart beat loudly in my chest, each beat echoing the same question. Why? When evening came, I finally heard voices outside. Daniel and Emma, calm, casual, as if nothing unusual had happened. Then I heard words that froze my blood. "It's better if she can't wander," Emma said flatly. "The lawyer said proof she's unsafe helps our case." Our case. Guardianship, control, power, over me. I pressed my mouth over my breath to stop the sound of my breathing. For the first time in my life, I realized my own child saw me not as his mother, but as an obstacle. Inside the shed, I sat on an old wooden crate and tried to calm my shaking hands. That's when I noticed an old toolbox pushed halfway under the workbench. Something inside it was glowing faintly. Curious, I pulled it closer. Inside was a hidden phone, not mine, not one I had ever seen before. The screen lit up with messages I was never supposed to read. Conversations about my bank accounts, about selling my house, about transferring everything into family control, about making sure I looked incapable. My heart broke, not loudly, not violently, just quietly, the way paper tears slowly when you don't want to make a sound. Eventually, the shed door opened. Daniel stood there, pretending surprise. "Mom, how did you get locked in here? You should have told us you were going outside." I looked at him, really looked at him, and said nothing. Sometimes silence is the loudest truth we have. That night, when everyone was asleep, I gathered the courage I thought I had lost years ago. I placed the hidden phone in my pocket. I took my documents from the cupboard, my house deed, my bank records, my ID, everything. Then I called a lawyer. Then my doctor. Then my oldest friend. And the next day, I left. Not with anger, not with shouting, just with dignity. The case I filed revealed everything. The hidden phone, the messages, the guardianship plan, the financial abuse. And this time, the law stood beside me. Daniel cried in court. Emma blamed stress. Excuses felt like broken glass, but broken glass still cuts. I didn't hate them, but I no longer trusted them with my life. Today, I live in a small apartment with big windows and quiet peace. My medication is where I can see it, my keys stay in my pocket, my phone belongs only to me. My voice, the one I thought I had lost, speaks again. So if you are listening to my story right now, and someone tells you they only want what's best for you while your world grows smaller, if your independence disappears piece by piece, if your life feels like a cage disguised as care, please remember this. Love protects, control imprisons, and even at 72 years old, you still deserve freedom. Sometimes the smallest shed holds the biggest truth, and sometimes finding a second phone saves your first life. That is my story.